Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi, Partho. Hi, Amit.
Hi,
So,
good evening.
so, there's a little change of plans because one of our speakers, Masood, he's traveling to Delhi, but his flight has got delayed. So he would probably be able to join us somewhere around between 8:15 to 8:30. So I have with me Neelu, who's one of the panelists today. So Neelu has been completely in the L&D sphere primarily and worked with companies like Wipro and then with several other organizations. And now she heads her own L&D firm, which is Khyrsalis. Uh, the topic for today, as I said, is leadership. And going by our different discussions that we had on the HR side. So there were several things that we had discussed, things like induction, how on candidate experience, various things, which help an organization build an employer brand, make itself known to candidates, make itself known to its employee, and employees do want to work for it, work for the organization. But none of it is possible unless there is both one, a leadership competency of the organization, and two, there are competent leaders in the organization. Why I make this distinction is that when I talk about the leadership competency, it is something which the organization, seeing its business requirements, seeing the uh, type of people that they're going to hire in the next day, decides that what leadership competencies they should have, which the organization uh, members would be displaying, what type of behaviors that they want to see, what type of competencies, how they interact with people, how they manage people. This is something which is a leadership competency framework for the organization. Once this is defined, the next step is also very important, is that now I know individuals required to be here. I do an assessment and see my individual leaders are currently in this position. Therefore, bridging that gap and developing the leaders. So the topic today, therefore, is developing leadership, where it actually covers both. Where one is at an organization level, how do we build that leadership muscle so that all leaders have that competency and there is a uniform experience which employees, customers, candidates, everyone who interacts with these leaders have. And the second one, of course, is how do we develop individual leaders? So I can say one is the macro aspect, which is the competency framework. What is the leadership competency that we have? And one is the micro process of, actually ensuring that a person can be developed to act as a leader based upon the leadership competency framework. So since there is some degree of a that Masood was supposed to cover a part, so I would start off with Neelu. So, Neelu, in your course, you worked with several organizations. I think in Wipro, you were doing strategic leadership development, right? And therefore, I would like to ask you that when we talk about leadership development, uh, what is the one which you feel is more important, developing individuals or developing the leadership framework? And what is the process in which the leadership framework is developed and then individual leaders are developed to that way? And I also want to understand your the very interesting tool that you told us about is about absence management and presence management. Over to you, Neelu.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitra. First of all, for inviting me. And on behalf of Gemba HR, I would like to thank you definitely. And it's glad to have this conversation on a topic which is so close to us, because this is something we do day in, day out with MDPs, with LDPs, etc. And having spent about 16 plus years into training and development, I'm sure it is going to be an interesting discussion with you, who's been an industry stalwart as well in the HR domain. Right. So coming to your question, when you said that, what does the framework look like? Should we first focus on the individual or on the organization? I feel any amount of change that has to happen should start from an individual level. Then, of course, it goes to the team level, and then, the leadership level, and therefore the organization benefits. However, to put that together, of course, a framework has to be done. So the way I'm looking at it, or the way, organizations also look at it, is first trying to understand where are the challenges, where are the gaps. And the best way to do it is, conducting these reviews, conducting the performance discussions, which is now happening in most organizations. We're almost towards the end of it. Understanding what are the top needs that are coming out, what level requires which kind of support. And then, looking at like what we call it as a TNI, doing a TNI, and then looking at, okay, which level requires what kind of a program, and then doing very need-based specific programs. And I think at a leadership level, it's very important for us to understand this perspective, that it's just not one size fits all, but rather it's about customizing, curating. And that's where, that awareness comes in, and then offering people what they require. I'll just give you a small story that somebody had shared with me in the past. So this was about a hat seller, a topi seller, yeah, as we call it. So this guy was a hat seller, and he was in the traditional business, family business. All his family members in the past, generations after generations, were selling hats. So he used to work out of a village, and scorching heat, hats used to be sold a lot. But during afternoons, he would go and rest in a jungle, in a forest, under a tree. That was his siesta time. So one day he went to, the forest to rest under a tree, and he put the hats that he had in his hand on the side. And the moment he put it on the side, and he just closed his eyes for a quick nap, he saw the hats were gone. And then when he looked up, he saw that, a monkey had taken all the hats, and he had all the hats in his hand. The monkey had it. And suddenly he was like, okay, now what do I do? How do I earn a living? My hats are gone. So he thought, okay, let me do this. He suddenly recalled that, monkey follow actions. Whatever you do, they do the same thing. So he had one hat on his head. So he took out that hat from his head and he put it on the side, thinking that the moment he does that, the monkey will also do the same. And actually that worked. He put the hat on the side, and the monkey also threw all the hats that he had in his hand. And this guy quickly grabbed the hat and he ran away. Yeah, that worked. Now years passed by. The guy's son took over the business. And when the son took over the business, same thing was happening. He was selling hats. He was going around to the village selling hats. One day he was also resting under the forest, under the tree. Same thing happened. His hat on his head, but the rest of the hats on the ground. Monkey came, quickly took the hats away. He recalled, oh, this incident my dad had told me. So what he did, he took out the hat, he put it on the ground. And this monkey, a smart monkey, he took that one hat away, and he ran away with the entire set of the hats. So, the point was that while this guy learned from his father, the monkey also learned from his father, right? So
Great.
everybody is busy with, one size doesn't fit all, and the same learnings may not apply universally. We need to keep upgrading, and we need to keep developing. So yeah, coming back to the question about, organization development, about leadership development, I think we'll definitely get stagnated if we don't look at upskilling. And that can happen only when an individual level realizes, when a leadership realizes that every individual, everybody in the pipeline requires to upgrade themselves.
Okay. So when you say upgrade themselves in terms of, one is, of course, the technical competency, the person moving from a role, what are the new developments which are happening in his field. For example, for me or you would look into what are the new things happening in L&D. I would look into what are the new things which are happening in HR. So that is one part of the story. But then there is, when we look at leadership, it is again something which is very, I would say, function neutral. Everyone has to be if someone has to be successful, they have to be a leader. They should have certain competencies, irrespective of function, even irrespective of level. Because I also have major leadership development requirement for people who are maybe at the front line, handling the sales force or handling the factory. So they have one type of leadership because they're dealing with a different set of individuals, of course, different level of individuals. And then, of course, you have the senior leadership, middle level. All these are basically part of the entire, matrix of leaders. Now, if I'm looking at technical skill development, that is a different thing because that is something which individuals would require to do. But when I want to develop someone as leaders, then firstly, who do I identify that this person should become a leader? How do I identify? And then what are the possible steps which are there, which would require that we understand the gaps the person have and therefore take him on a development journey so that he can become a leader. You have any thoughts on this? Like what is the typical way in which we do it?
Sure. I think, most organizations, the way it works is we look at positions, we close positions, and suddenly somebody who was not handling a large team becomes a manager or a leader in charge. While the designation has changed, the mindset hasn't shifted. And a lot of people get stuck in that. There are very few companies who invest in a formal MDP where they're training, they're coaching their people. So, out of these problem statements that we've dealt with in the past, because we conduct a lot of MDPs, we've noticed that, first of all, identification. Just because I'm good at my current KRAs and KPIs doesn't mean I can be a good people manager, because there I require a different set of a skill set altogether. I need to work with each other. I need to look at collaboration, communication, and a lot of other aspects. Group dynamics play a role, right? And it's that concept that we were talking about, the presence management and the absence management. It doesn't work that way. And most of the people who haven't been through a formalized program, they pick up things that they've learned in the environment. They're probably reflections of who they've worked with in the past, which may or may not work in the current situation. So to answer the first part of your question, where you mentioned that, how do we identify who's who's ready for the leadership level? I feel there will be definitely performance plays an important role, what I'm doing currently, but also the potential. Do I have those softer aspects or the people management aspects? Is this pointing towards, becoming a people manager? I think along with the data, if we could look at these competencies as well, which gets assessed in an interview for sure. So yeah, the CBI, the competency-based interviews would definitely help, or the BEI, the behavioral indicator interview always helps for sure. So that's the first step. And the second step is the moment somebody gets into the leadership cadar, some sort of formalized hand-holding, structure, training has to be there. And the person needs to understand what is expected out of, being at that role, being at that level. And since we spoke about the presence management and absence management, you can't be there all the time. There will be times when you're away as a manager, as a leader. So, how do you ensure that your team is functioning with you or without you? That's where multiple skill sets come in, right? It's about coaching your team, it's about giving feedback, and it's about effective delegation, not micromanaging, but reviewing as and when required. Most of us are not able to draw that significant line or the thin line between these two, when to review and when to micromanage, or when not to micromanage rather.
Great. I'll just share an anecdote of mine. There are two
Sure.
anecdotes. In fact, this is
Sure.
about when I became the HR manager in ITC Calcutta factory. So earlier I was the assistant manager, so I did not have any reportees under me. No managers reported into me. There were, of course, the clerks, etc., time office, uh, production clerks. These reported to me. But then I became the HR manager. And after about just two points which I took from him. One was that, the mindset. So I became the HR manager. There was another person. he took up my role as assistant manager HR. The big challenge was that the jobs which I could complete in, say, half a day, this person has to understand and take about 2-3 days to complete. And what the environment also understood is that if we have to try out with this guy, the new guy, it is going to take time for us. So everything started. Nothing stopped coming to me. Everything kept on coming. And, it was like, I could understand that, yeah, this can be easily solved. So it was very tempting to solve these problems. The initial couple of times I was doing it also. And then I felt that if I'm doing this, the new role that I've taken up, I don't have any time to do it because I'm still doing my junior's work while he is there and he's also not learning anything. So that is where I actually put my foot down and I told the environment that I will not respond to you. You will have to go to this person. And this included union, this included the unit head, everyone. Where I had to tell them that if this is the problem, then don't come to me straight. There is someone there. First, you have to go to that. Initially, there was a lot of resistance towards that, but slowly I pushed it through so that my junior also picked up and so that he also became productive after some time. And after some time, he was doing the job that I did better than I did. So, but I had to give him that time. And sometimes that becomes a big problem. And this is something which you have to very consciously, mindfully do it. Because there is always this temptation that, yeah, I can do it easily. But to ensure that it gets done by someone else is there that risk that you need to take. And that is something which was very important. And that's a mindset shift which I had to go through. And the second one is your absence management. I remember going again in ITC, I went on my honeymoon. So this same guy, so I told him that I will be assessing you by the number of phones I receive while I'm on honeymoon. If I'm receiving calls and you have a problem which you can't solve, then it's your problem. So, but that was something which he was a friend, of course, and that was something which he ensured that he did not call me. In fact, after some time, I called him back that what happened? I'm not receiving any calls. He said, no, everything is fine. I'm getting this thing in order. That gave me a lot of confidence. Just two anecdotes on my leadership journey, which I shared.
Absolutely. That's amazing to hear. In fact, something very similar happened to me as well. Often we feel that, the kind of skill set that we have, we expect the same amount of skills from our team members. And that's, I think, one of the major disconnects that a lot of people have. If I'm a performer, if I am a task manager, I can't expect everybody to take task on very seriously. Or if I'm a performer, I can't expect my team members will also become performers. That doesn't happen. I will also deal with underperformers. So I remember once I was, delegating a task to one of my team members. And while we were halfway through, it was a 10 minutes of work. I was already on the call for 45 minutes, explaining that 10 minutes of work. So in my head, I was thinking that, if I'm investing 1 hour on this conversation, I can just finish it off. But then later on, I kept on going with this conversation and I thought, chalo, theek hai, since I've entered into it, let's finish it. And this person took some time, but over a period of time, this person went on an autopilot mode with that 10 minutes of task, which cleared a lot of my time because it was a recurring activity. So what I realized was, this was a personal experience, of course. Today, it might look like a time wastage, that I'm investing so much of time for a small task, which I can finish quickly. But what we are doing is we are developing a resource which can actually clear out a lot of our time by taking
In the
care of it and
future.
working on an autopilot mode.
Absolutely. And
Right.
this has been a philosophy of mine, which
Hmm.
is that you need to make yourself redundant within the first 2 years of your in the same job. Because then you will be doing the same thing over and over again. If you can't make yourself redundant, you're still required to get involved, that you are not able to develop the second line who can do it. Then what happens is that that's, I think, the start of stagnation. And everyone seems to believe that only you can do it. while it is very important that you also, for your own growth, require to leave some of the things which you are good at to others. Let them learn the process and then let them deliver, because you can't be doing the same thing for years. Just opening this conversation out, you wanted to say something, Neelu?
Yeah, I was just saying that also comes with a lot of sense of security and insecurity. A
Yeah,
lot of
absolutely.
leaders, they don't want to give away certain things, thinking that what next, right? If I create a succession plan, am I even required in the system? So that bit also needs to be handled with some self-awareness. When you're creating people, when you're building that pipeline, you'll of course remain. And what are you losing out on? You're at least building a resource who can help you out. You remember that quote that the responsibility of a leader is to create more leaders. And I
Absolutely.
think that really holds so true, not just in philosophy, but in action as well.
No, it is very important that you develop your team members to take up your roles and responsibilities, so that when because then that gives you the time to work on new projects, to move on to new areas. Otherwise, you will not be you will be bogged down by your current responsibility. Just
Definitely.
opening this out
Sure.
to the entire audience, and all of you are here. All of you have been experienced leadership in some way or the other, as a leader or as a subordinate. So your thoughts on this, that, you know, if I am a leader, it is my responsibility that I develop someone else. Is it important that we do it? Or is it that what Neelu was saying, that the insecurity of I being my importance getting lower, that is something which will resist someone from training up their team members? What has been your experience? If any of you can share some experience, it would be really enriching.
Yeah, hi Binayak.
Hi, Amit.
Hi. So very interesting topic, this leadership. So coming to the particular point that you have mentioned, what I feel is, see, when you become a leader, you should try to make this difference between an individual and a team, right? So maybe
Okay.
somebody was an individual contributor so far in an organization, and then they suddenly become a team leader. So whether I'll develop, so if once you become a leader, the team comes first, what you achieve as a team, right? So organizational goals, you may have sales targets or whatever. So in order to achieve that team target, you need to develop the team well. So therein comes developing your next line of people, and maybe upskilling the other people, giving them opportunities, giving them responsibilities, and you need to rely on them also, right? So maybe I would have done it this way, but every individual is unique. So everybody may not do the way I was doing, but as long as the team objective is met, you should be happy as a team leader. So many a times people try to find it difficult to differentiate between individual growth and the team growth when they become a leader. So I think that's a very uh, crux situation and very important situation, right? So when you put the team first, then you tend to develop the team members so that people are not so much relied on you. So you can maybe go on a vacation or whatever, and the team operates and the objectives are met. So that is an important distinction which all of us should be very careful about, and that is where the difference comes. That if I develop somebody else, that insecurity part, right? So once you become a leader, if the team does well, then you as a team leader also do well. You may not be doing individually that particular work which your team is doing, right? It's the same as a cricket team, right? The captain may not be the top scorer, right? But he needs to motivate his main batsmen or the bowlers to take the wickets and score the runs, right? So end of the day, if the team wins, the captain gets the credit. Okay, the team has won. So it's the same concept here. So that is how maybe we can look at it.
Great, great, Amit. That's the very one point which actually, which apart from the lot of very important things you made, but one point really struck out is rely on the person, trust. So I think that is perhaps the biggest challenge. One is, of course, the insecurity. Even if you're not insecure, can I trust my junior to do this job? That
That's
is,
right.
I think, where a lot of leaders actually end up not delegating
Exactly.
because they don't feel that their subordinate can do it. Their reliance is not there. The trust is not there. What about others? Your experiences on leadership? Thanks, Amit. This is a very, very nice uh, commentary that you made on leadership. Anyone else want to go on this?
Vinayak, hi, Shomit here.
Yeah,
If I
Shomit.
could
Hi.
add my
Yeah,
two
please,
bits.
please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi Neelu. Hi Vinayak. Hi Masood. Uh, I have worked for a long time in a diversified real estate hospitality group and rose to the position of GM operations. So what I have seen, I personally believe that a leader is part born and part made. You have to be born with certain intrinsic qualities, with certain mindset, which are fine-tuned and honed over time through practice. So a true leader is one who lets the grass grow under his feet, because that is what would make him a taller person. That is what would really make him grow in stature. Now, of course, the innate fear in everybody is, if I grow beyond my responsibilities, if I develop more people, those around me, and encourage them in turn to develop those under them, when the positions are not opening up to accommodate those individuals with new job titles, new responsibilities, and all, does that mean that there is a certain level of redundancy is creeping in? Does that mean that I'm looking too far ahead into the future? So one has to understand that no industry, no situation is static. We are all part of a very dynamic industry, very dynamic corporate milieu, and we have to be, as leaders, we have to be excellent at spotting opportunities. We have to be excellent at spotting potential in people and developing them, notwithstanding the circumstances. I believe in something called executive presence. If you are an executive, if you have leadership, whether it is technical challenges, whether it is adaptive challenges which you're facing, you will straddle them and come out with flying colors. So you have to always be hungry to identify niches, to identify opportunities, and develop people who can in turn occupy those niches, who can in turn spot those opportunities, and as and when the right situation opens up, can step into those roles. And oftentimes in life, there is something called situational leadership, which steps up. For example, in the hospitality industry, there are times when your manager or manager's manager may not be around. You might be part of the housekeeping, you might be part of the food and beverage team, you might be part of the sales team, but you have to step up and take a situational call based on what you have in front of you. And as we all know, in every industry, customer is always king. So you have to, for example, a couple of instances which I'd like to share is, there was this cranky customer, but a repeat customer who used to come to one of our properties, and he used to raise hell if anything was out of whack, no matter how small, how trivial. So the housekeeping person who was there, she was relatively new in her job. She was only 6 months to the job, but she had an innate understanding that we're not supposed uh, to use a uh, slang phrase, piss off the customer. So so she developed that empathetic leadership, that I'll listen out, I'll hear the person and probably encourage him, with those things, and let him exhaust himself, and then I'll probably speak and give my mind give my side of the situation and tell him and try to genuinely understand his or her concern. So she did not have her manager or her manager's manager around. But instead of being reactive, she assumed the situational leadership of being proactive, and she managed to quieten the customer. Another time, there was one of my assistant managers, sales managers, who had this bad habit of developing leads. He was a very active person. He would develop leads. He would actively liaise with the telecallers. He was a great people's person. But then he would keep the leads to himself so that he could convert them and get the associated benefits, concomitant benefits. But then when that person, so he was ticked off on more than one occasion for this kind of behavior. But when that person became a manager, he started looking at the bigger picture. So ironically, he would tell his assistant managers to, look at the larger picture, look at the organizational goals, and behave in a selfless manner. It did not matter how the water came into your lake, as long as the water kept coming in. Because that way, if the organization grew, the organization benefited, everybody would benefit, end of the day. So this was a sea change from a person, who was earlier very selfish and very self-motivated, and that person transformed into a more or less selfless person with a broader perspective and uh, a kind of proper managerial mindset. So just a couple of anecdotes which I wanted to share. And of course, it is up to the management to drive the culture. What kind of culture do you want to build in the organization? If you build a culture of insecurity, then people will start keeping their tidbits, their knowledge, their acumen, their experiential learning to themselves and try to benefit from it at the cost of the organization's possible progress. But if you have develop a culture of leadership, actually empathetic leadership, then people will be encouraged to take the right calls, to be selfless, in the confidence that their actions will be rewarded in cash or in kind in due time, and that nothing will be lost. There'll be sort of karmic law operating, whereby they will also reap the benefits if the organization prospers. So that's my tuppence worth.
Great, Shomit. It was nice to hear from you. One point which struck out, of course, in your A is that you said that a leader is partly born and partly made. So when you say partly born and partly made, what do you think is what is that part of leadership which someone is born with? And I would then want to open it up to the rest of the forum on whether do you believe this, that leadership can, some part of leadership is always born.
I would very simply answer that the born part is the urge to stick your neck out, knowing that it's a sticky situation, you're batting on a sticky wicket, but the team needs somebody to go out there and take charge or take a difficult call and not, kind of play to the galleries.
So a taking responsibility as a
taking
trait.
responsibility.
As a trait.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
See,
Got it.
that is a very important part of your intrinsic leadership quality. And there are other things such as people skills, such as number crunching, uh, decision making, collaborating, managing conflicts, which are learned over time or fine tuned over time. That is what I would like to say.
Okay. Great. So any other leadership thoughts on leadership?
Binayak, can I?
Yeah. Please.
Can
Partha.
I?
Please,
Yeah.
please.
See, I have. Hi, Neelu. Hi, Binayak. Hi,
Hi.
everybody here. I was listening Amit's and Somit's perspective. Yes, they are very uh, the point, and we cannot deny what is their perspective and all this thing. But my personal belief is about in respect of leadership is a leader is most of us in a group. Say, for example, it is a 10 or 15 people. So a leader is most of us, and a leader is one of us. Leader, who will be leader? One of the people, one person from this 15 population or 10 numbers of people, one of us. Second thing is, he is most of us, because the attribute of the people, domain knowledge of the people, empathy to the team, to the society and everything, which is, we can see most of the attribute to him. And most important thing is, he or she is best of us. To me, this is leadership. Leader is one of us, most of us, and best of us. And in this context, we can say, who is the leader? Who is first among the equals? Who is the Prime Minister of India? He is an MP, Chief Minister of a particular state. He or he is a MLA, leader of the party, leader of the parliament or whatever may be. But he is first among the equals. His or her qualification is MP or MLA. So this is leadership, and at the same time, unique people touch make a leader most unique. People touch is a very important thing. This cannot be, as Somit, I think, was trying to say, that leaders are born or leaders are, they can be taught. I am not going to that debate, but matter of the fact is, uh, people touch is very important. People touch, not that he every time. See, there is a debate. People leave the manager, people leave the company. I don't believe, because managers are managers. They have to answer for this, everything. The team synergy, team performance, everything. But fact is, first of all, you have to be a nice person. Nice person, if you are a nice person, people came to you, they can share with his, any type of problem, any type of anything. So that is, as a leader, if I know he has any problem in his home front, we are not, we HR people or people management people, we are always dealing with the emotion of the people. Suppose somebody joining in the office and know today is was the date for his further first chemo. So I have to be, listen, empathetic, and all this thing cannot be taught like this way. It is a matter of value system. And value system is depends upon your, it is reflect in your attitude. Say for example, one of as a manager, if I think that uh, higher education, more management development courses are very beneficial for my team members, and if any of my team members at his own or at her own do all this thing, and I allow him to leave the office by 4. If somebody came and asked me why, where is he or where is he, if my attitude is good or bad, my answer will be this way. If my attitude is not that way, I will say, I don't know where he or she went. He or she told me that he going to the to courses and all this thing. But I don't know. देखो कोई फिल्म में दिखता होगा, ठीक है, कोई काम है तो काला हो. If my attitude is good, I will say, oh, you are looking after him or her. He or she is so, hardworking, so focused to his career. After doing all these things, she went for the college and course and all these things. Tell me how I can help you. This is the attitude. This is the value system. Reflect the activities of a leader.
Wonderful. So one which very clearly comes out is that you have to be supportive,
Yes.
and you have to be supportive of your people's endeavors and empathy. You really need to understand, because people, and that I think is the difference of any other resource and human resource.
Yeah.
In the same environment, in the same parameters, the same person can act differently because they have a different thing going on in their mind, which will not happen in case of a machine or in case of capital or
Yes,
anything. It will be very mathematical. It will be the same answer every time.
absolutely.
But when you're talking about people, you need to understand that he is also a person, he or she is also a person. And therefore, you may not have the same response to the same situation every time. Because it
Absolutely.
depends upon his mood, it will depend upon the situation that he is in. And as a leader, I understand the symptoms. And I understand that, and I respect that if a person has a certain problem or anything, I would ensure that that is taken care of. And the second one, the example of when you're sending someone for education. So being supportive of your team, I think that is also, and standing up for them when required. That is very important because that creates the credibility, the trust that we are talking of. That gets built with these sort of scenarios. Great. So Rajiv, I didn't hear from you. So why don't you tell us something about your leadership?
Hi, good evening,
Hi,
everyone.
good evening.
Nice to see Neelu here and some known faces. So, yeah, since everybody has touched on all the points, I'll be touching a very broad nerve. That is the important aspect of having the effective leadership, whether it's an inherent trait or it's a development skill. So, since we have discussed on all these aspects, so I thought let us put my perspective on this important aspect. So I feel uh, this effective leadership is a combination. Well, there is a doubt. It can come. It can be an inherent trait, or sometimes a development skill. But I feel that effective leadership is always a combination of inherent traits and the development skill. So we see people coming up with natural leadership qualities, and where organization fosters or sometimes it nurtures this leadership ability. So as well as the organization also sometimes help on the developmental aspect also the skill enhancement part. So as I told that I'll be talking on a different thing. So I wanted to highlight on this aspect. It Shomi was talking about this. So I feel that leadership is a combination of inherent traits and developed skills. Yeah.
Great. Now, the other aspect of it is so one is, of course, when we are talking about leaders, we have understood what leadership actually entails. We got into a debate on whether leadership is, some part of it is you're born into it, some part of it you can develop. Uh, the thoughts on what Partho shared on how to build empathy, how to build credibility and trust with team members, and that's what leaders say. Now, the point is task-oriented, people-oriented. These are the two dimensions in which we look at leadership. So there is always this thing that he's a taskmaster. He makes us work a lot. And then we have the people's manager. The typical, that he's very good with people. But in my experience, good leaders have to have this balance. It cannot be only task or only people.
It has to be a sweet spot, in between.
Yeah. So that is the question. How do you identify? Now, when you look at, this is to you, Neelu, that when you see an individual, how do you assess this? That he is a task-oriented person, he's a people-oriented person, and how does he come to that balance? Because that is, I think, the crux of the leadership training, is that you have an inherent disposition that this is the way I do things. And then you also need to have the empathy, the people-centric approach, or any other. Well, it can be a people-centric approach, but then you need to drive your target. You need to get your people to drive your targets. So you have to step out of perhaps your what is more convenient for you, what is more comfortable for you, into a zone of discomfort and strike that balance. Now, how do you train people this?
I think you mentioned a very important question. Most of the times when we do these, whether it is about conducting psychometric tools, assessments, or conducting leadership journeys, a lot of people are either task focused or people focused. And both of them are super dangerous because a task focused person is all about, I want this done. This is the deadline. This is what needs to be done. Come what may, work should happen. And a people's person is more about, looking, empathizing, etc. And certain times, saying no becomes a challenge. Managing stakeholders become a challenge. They end up taking a lot of work which they're not able to manage. The team feels that the leader is not being, the leader is not pushing enough, and a lot of things are coming to them. So we see a challenge between both the styles if it's not balanced appropriately. So how do we identify, first of all, if a person is a people's manager or a task manager? If somebody is highly focused on just the work and ignoring everything else in the world, if they're only focused upon the deliverables, the TAT, the timelines, the escalations, everything else, then of course, and not listening to the problem statements of what the other people are facing, not being empathetic enough. It's all about what I want. It's all about, withdrawing all the time and just focusing on the deliverables. The person is superbly task oriented for sure. While that helps in driving, that helps in closure. But there could be an approach of showing the people management side as well. Work can get done by showing people management skills as well. And people management skills basically, showing empathy, being a coach, guiding, supporting, mentoring, listening, respecting, all of these things. And how do we have a sweet spot in between? I think a lot of us are working out of our hardwiring. Whatever I have learned, I have been taught, I have observed, that will be my reaction and my response. So it's very important for us as leaders to, think, pause, and reflect. What is working? What's not working? I remember a line that, when I was doing my NLP certification, neuro linguistic programming, there was a very important line which impacted me a lot, which said, the meaning of your communication or the communication is the response that you get. So whatever you're saying, basis the response, you understood, how has it been understood? So I think as a leader, if we are aware of what is my communication leading to, are people getting off guard? Are they getting defensive? Or are they running around? They might run for some time, but at one point of time, they'll feel exhausted. So as a task manager, we're exhausting people. As a people manager, also, we might end up exhausting people if we don't know where to draw the line. So I think while getting the task done is important, if we could bring in focus of empathy, of listening, of respect, of appreciations, that will be the sweet spot, according to me.
Okay. So one is, of course, this identification of the sweet spot is very important, and therefore, so individuals hardwiring, how they are in terms of, are they a task driver? Are they people who are, the empathy part is there, people part is there, but sometimes lacks when they have to drive people or when they have to go and say that, when they have to say give a strong message. I think that's where the big challenge happens with a lot of leaders when they're not able to spell out. And sometimes that leads to a lot of issues because the communication, because he's not able to come out clean, the communication is not clear. And so things are happening and the team
True.
operation
And often the person wants to be the person who's been called good in that manner. This is a good one. He's a great leader. He is always so people centric. And that is where saying no suffers. That's where pushing for deadline suffers. That's where asking for resources takes a backseat. Because you want to be good in the books of everybody else. That's your driving force. So yeah, the team suffers, the stakeholders suffer, and a lot of things happen. Yeah.
Right. So very important that as leader, this is an example which was given to me. I really wanted to bring it because you put that point that being good to all, looking good to all. So this was we had a commercial head. This was, I was working with, I think, Philips Carbon Black, the RPSG group. So we had a commercial head in one of the plants. So, so he was assigned to me as a mentor. And so I was his mentor. So I was talking up to him. He was asked to develop his people skills. Now he was very soft in the sense that everyone can, get things done from him, but he would find it very difficult to get things from others. So this was a big challenge. So one day, so we had a session where the CFO, to whom he reports, not he directly report, but the head of the function, and I was there. And the CFO had said that you are not a film star that you need to be popular. His question, so we asked him that why don't you do this thing? Why don't you challenge people there? He said that people will think I am bad. I will lose my popularity with people out there. It came out. Then we told him that your job as a finance person in the plant is not to be popular. It doesn't matter that you are popular or not popular. But what is important is that your activities get done, because that is what is more important for the organization. So slowly we had to develop that in him, where, I remember he coming back and saying that, yes, today I told a no to the production person because these were the challenges. And earlier I never did it. Earlier I could not say it. I would always go to my team and say, do it for them, sit on overtime, do it. You have to give it by this date. They want it, all this. But this time I was able to do it. And that the team actually loved the second avatar more. Because the first one was someone who was a good person. It's nice talking to him. He is not rude to anyone. All that is fine. But he also could not defend his team. Because when more, task-oriented leaders or a little stronger personality leaders come into the picture, his team is made to do things which possibly the team felt that if he could take a stronger stance, would not happen. And that is what we had to actually show him the mirror. So we did 360-degree. We showed him what his team told about him, what his peers told about him. So it was like peers are saying that he's a great guy. But when it comes to the team gave very clear responses that sometimes, because he's not being able to take a stance, also is impacting our performance, is impacting the way we operate. So that's a very, very important thing, is this balance of people and task, which perhaps is a very important aspect which we need to look for. And personally, I don't believe that leaders are born. Personally, my belief is that you can train anyone to be a leader, but you have to create situations, create circumstances so that the person becomes a leader not by copying someone else. They create their unique, authentic leadership style. For example, if you ask me to become a very serious, very erudite sort of a leader or a person, I will not be that. I will talk to people, I joke with them, I will do it. That is my style. So when I'm a leader, I don't ever go away from that. My unique style, whether I'm interacting with friends or I'm interacting with my team, is very similar. That I will not be someone who would, show that I'm very erudite or, talk less, show very politeness to a large extent. It's not the way I am. I would be someone who would be, joking. Now, even as a leader, I would do the same thing with my team, and that helps me. If I try to be someone else, when I move out from my authentic self, just for a role, just for a thing, then it's acting. And very soon, someone or the other will be able to understand that this is not the real you. So, do you face this, Neelu? Do you see people, trying to emulate someone else someone they can't become. They are not, they are not toward that. Then how do you tackle these people? How do you give that message that this is not for you?
I think it's again about, trial and error. Because we often try to pick up things that is working for somebody else, and often we realize that's not our style.
No, I'm
So,
saying not for the individual, as a person who's taking charge and
yes,
understanding that this is a you have someone who's going to become a leader, and that person has a role model in his mind, her mind, that this is the right way.
true,
But
true,
the problem is the person doesn't have that. Maybe the circumstances or the situation is also different, and the person may not have those traits which
true.
they like.
And
So
it may
how
not
do
be the style, the
yeah,
appropriate style for
yeah.
that person or the context. So I'm trying to say that, a lot of times people actually pick up those skills and only realize over a period of time with trial and error. That is one way to do it. And the second way to do it is what works for me. And I think this is about picking up any skill set for that matter. There are so many books, there's so many management theories, there's so many philosophies that will tell you what a leader should do. I feel we should go with what suits me and what can help me achieve the outcome. If the why is clear to us, that what is it that we want to do and why is it that we want to do, and how do we want to do? If these three things are clear to us, I think we can then look at what style to take up. It can't be one size fits all. And that is where, I think Shomit was talking about situational leadership. If I try to copy somebody else, I have worked under, let's say, a directive style of leader, a dominating leader, and I pick up those skill sets and those style and think I'm going to apply it, it will backfire. So that is where I come back to the word of awareness. Even if you're doing a trial and error, please become aware as a leader to see how are my people behaving? How am I being perceived? Are they taking me seriously? And all these things will come out in their daily deliverables as well as their one-on-one discussions. And I think as managers, leaders, coaches, we always talk about this. The more connected you are with your people, don't just meet on reviews, but also do these one-on-one discussions. That gives you so much of understanding. Through that feedback, you can actually alter your style.
The next part that I have, the big thought which I have is that now, as leaders, I deal with individuals as my team members. So I have a style of operating with individuals, and also when these individuals come as a collective, when they come in as a group. Is there any prescriptive things that on team dynamics and individual, is there a different style or a different approach which leaders should take when they are dealing with the same members, but as a collective, and when they're individually dealing with a member? Is there some things which leaders have to keep in mind?
I think when they're dealing with individuals, it's very individual centric. What does a person require? What does a person need? If I understand what is their driving force, what's there with him, I feel that will help us tailor conversations for sure. And as a group, we can look at, certain skill sets or certain areas that will definitely make sense to them. For example, in in a group setup, I know there are 5 people that I'm speaking to. I know that for these 5 people, largely, maybe I could touch upon the goal. But when I'm talking individually, then it's about what does person next want. So just to give you an idea, maybe at a large forum, I'm sure you've been in HR for many, many years now. We conduct these meetings, right, where we are addressing the crowd. It's more of influencing, it's more of high conversation, it's more of a macro look. And when we are doing that one-on-one conversation or at an individual level, that is where we deep dive, and that's where we had these conversations. So yeah, one is a macro, another is a micro level of conversation that we get into.
Great. I think Masood still hasn't, I'm not being able to connect, so I think most probably has not landed. So just asking Shomit, Rajiv, Amit, since you three are there, if you have any questions, you can put forward. I think we've had a constructive discussion. It would have been great to have Masood around because he has some great stories on leadership development, which he has done. But unfortunately, with the flight thing, I don't think we will be able to have him around. Any questions?
No question as such, but a wonderful conversation. Very
Thank you,
nice to hear
Rajesh.
from Neelu and Vinayak. Thank you for hosting such sessions. Look forward.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you so much. In
May-
fact, to each one of you all for adding so much of value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very well moderated, Bino. And thank you, Neelu, for your insightful views. Just one thing to add to the last topic. When we are addressing, Neelu put it very succinctly that one is a micro, conversation, the other is a macro conversation. See, each one of us has his own self-perception. Okay, so whenever we are addressing a team, we would have to be wary of what is the larger goal, what is the larger message to be delivered, and not to overly applaud nor criticize any particular person. So if there is a tailor-made,
In public.
specific feedback to be given to a certain person, it would be more appropriate to
Do it in
call
private.
that person in private and keep his or her self-esteem intact and have a mature conversation, keeping in mind the larger organizational goal or the problem which we're trying to solve. So that is very, very important. Otherwise, it can break team dynamics and it can rupture relationships. And these ruptures don't easily heal. So one has to be very mindful as a leader of this. We can't always put up a Johari window to a person, but we can be mindful of what his or her strengths are and what drives that person, and what is the best way to probably communicate a message, even if it's a harsh message or an unpleasant message. So that is something as leaders we should always keep in mind.
Wonderful, Shomit. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, everybody. And Mr. Mitra, thank you so much for the invite. It was wonderful sharing this platform with you and great conversation with, of course, the rest of us who've joined the call. Thank you so much, Shomit, Amit, Rajeev. And earlier we had Mr. Partha also. Yes, yes.
Great, great. Thanks a lot, all of you. Signing off now.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.